because this is really closer to my heart, and I'm one of the 200 survivors that you saw in that video. So I have gone through FGM, and like my sister here. So we're just here to change and do what we have to do. So right now, what I wanted to really ask you is that before I open the question to the audience, is that one thing that always stopped me as a survivor, as a nurse in the UK, doing what I can in the UK to end FGM and educate the world, that I always find hard to think about what other people think and what they would think. So within the community, what I wanted to ask you, Rabi, my dear sister, who I love so much, is did you find any hard, like, was it really hard for you to do what you were doing? Did you get abuse from the community? Like, just tell me, because that's my fear.
Okay, thank you very much for a good question. Because I'm working with this FGM, which is our own practice. So some of our community, they see like the enemy of the community. And they threaten me sometimes with some words. That is the woman who don't want our daughters to be cut, like that when you pass. So they see you like, but we are working to help the girls not to be cut anymore. And sometimes they threaten even to my family. Yeah? They approaching my family, approaching, why can't you stop her? Why is she doing this? You see, that I have to do this. I am the woman, a woman from the Korean tribe who could stand and raise the voice for other women whom cannot talk about FGM, the effects of FGM. So there are some threats in the community. They see me like sometimes they're enemy, but we are trying to working very hard to fight against FGM.
And well done. And I just wanted to say that how proud I am of you, of the work that you are doing, especially doing it at home. Can everybody hear me? Because I feel like, yeah? Okay. Well, I'm loud anyway. I really find courageous of the work that you do, because as a survivor that I'm fighting in the UK, and I always find it hard to even fight in the UK. But for you to be at home, for you to be at home in, especially, I know, and I want all of you to know that FGM doesn't just happen in Africa. FGM happens in the whole worldwide world. FGM can happen in Russia, FGM happens in US, it happens in the Mayan community in South America. So please, I want you to think back again and think about that. FGM is not just a African child issue. FGM is an issue the whole wide world, that it happens everywhere. Now, going back to what I was going to ask you was, how was it that even that when you find yourself to be strong, to do what you are doing, to stand up to your community, how easy was that, or how hard was it?
Of course, it was hard. You have to have a courage from your heart.
Yeah.
Really, I didn't like this practice even to be done to me. So from the pain I had, and the way I was thinking on how I could escape this, is where now I see that I could help other girls not to be cut. I think we saw this film, as we see, Neema. She was asked with her father to be cut and then to be married. And she would like to be a doctor. How could she reach her dream if she could be cut? For now, she could be having even 2 children or even 3. So really, that is encouraging me to see the girls like Neema. If they will be educated, Rosie and others, we are having the good ambassadors who will stand for their daughters and stand against this female genital mutilation. So I'm encouraged with this.
And I have a question for Giselle. What I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to be blunt here, I'm going to say exactly how the world says it. As a white woman that is privileged in the Western world, and have rights for a lot of things, how hard was it for you to actually go to Africa and do a film that is educational for all of us, even though we are the survivors from Africa, that how hard was it for you? And how did you come over that?
Well, I have been a human rights journalist and a filmmaker for most of my career. So I've made films about honor killings in Pakistan and child slavery in Africa. And I've wanted to make a documentary about FGM for the better part of actually more than 2 decades. And it was very difficult to get the funding. That was one reason it didn't happen. But I have to be completely honest with all of you, which is that the main reason it didn't happen sooner is because I was afraid to go and make the film, because I was afraid to be there at or near a ceremony. And I thought, as a filmmaker, I can't not go there and not actually document it in a real way. And that was too difficult. I mean, how could I go as a human being and stand by? And yet, as a journalist, it would have been my role not to interfere. So that really kept me, that fear of confronting it, for so many years. And then as I mentioned at the outset, I put a Google alert in for FGM, and I read story after story after story. And when my friend and colleague, when her radio documentary appeared about the safe house and about Rhobi and about the girls, the courageous, amazing, brave girls running away, I knew that I had found the way to tell the story, because it was a hopeful story. It wasn't another story about African victims. It was truly, and is, a story about young African warriors standing up for their fundamental human rights, and a whole new generation of children that I think are going to be the leaders to stop this practice once and for all.
Absolutely, the best way it can be. Before I open a question to everybody else to ask, what I want you to all think about that, in the UK, we had FGM Act since 1985. That was amended 2003. Now imagine we are in 2018 today, and we're still talking about this subject. We are still talking about this subject. The government agreed that FGM is a child abuse. They actually agreed it's a child abuse. But at the same time, is that the Child Protection Act is different to the FGM Act in the UK. So I'm so grateful you bring your film. I'm so grateful you are here. Rosie is just a girl like me. Flora is just a girl like me. I survived that. And I'm here to ask you today that we all have a work to do. We have a mountains to climb, and we need to change this act. We need to actually fight for girls and women around the world. With that said, anybody got a question?
Fantastic. Thank you, ladies, all of you. Fantastic.
I don't think that's all, you know.
Is it? Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. It's really touched me. Right. My question, of course, everything Hoda says is absolutely true. You know, it hasn't gone away. We are all still fighting, are we not? Yeah. What I'm very interested in, particularly in your film, is how did you get the funding for the safe house? Because we need safe houses here too, in a different way, I know that. But at a time when, you know, even women who are being abused have got nowhere to go, and we're not raising it as an issue, congratulations for making it an issue. And what do we do wherever we are? There's children need protection here. We need to help you. What do we do? Is that all right?
Talk to this point, and the lady who just asked that question is Hilary Barrage, who is one of the world's foremost experts in FGM and has written books.
Thank you.
And so, just so we know where that question is coming from. So the safe house that you see in the film is not the safe house that exists anymore at the moment. It's a complicated story, which we're not going to go into. But Rhobi Samwelli has survived incredible odds. Against all the odds, she has started her own charity, which is registered in Tanzania, and she's now running 2 safe houses, about 2 hours apart, in borrowed buildings. The vehicles that you see in the documentary, the money was raised by BBC listeners as a result of Linda's documentary. That vehicle is no longer Rhobi's, complicated story. Rhobi is being supported by the Tanzania Development Organized Trust. And thank you to you because you allowed me to come and film with Rhobi, which is fantastic. They are supporting Rhobi, but Rhobi is in desperate needs of funds because the cutting season is already starting right now because they're getting ahead of the game because they want to get ahead of the police. So it's starting. It should have started in December, but it's already underway. Not if I'm correct.
Yes.
A girl already died
Yeah.
2 weeks ago in Tanzania, and Rhobi is desperate for a vehicle. So she really, really needs our support. And we will hand out postcards before we all leave, which has my website, and it leads you directly to the funding page. All the money will go through the Tanzania Development Trust and will go to Rhobi and her safe houses, which is basically the Hope Center for Girls and Women in Tanzania. And the Mutiama, the two safe houses that Rhobi is running. And I just want you to know that this is the most incredible woman I've ever met in a 30-year career of documentary filmmaking in human rights. She is in a complete league of her own. She's just been on a world tour to New York, now here. She's going off to Canada, and she smiles through it all, as somebody tweeted today. You know, jet lag, long plane flights, amazing. Over to you, Rhobi.
Thank you. The traditional leader changed again. They cut some of the girls, and the girls were locked in the houses, as we saw an example in one of the families there. So our volunteers used to call us and ask us to help the girls. So we just, because we don't have vehicle, how can we do more? We report it to the gender desk at the police, and we work in collaboration with them. But sometimes our police, they have only one vehicle. So, I remembered when they reported that one girl died. It was in 11th September. She was cut and she died. And the parents were planning to throw her in the bushes. So the volunteer informed us. We reported it to the police. But bad enough, the vehicle was far away in another village, other direction. To make a follow-up in order to, even to rescue the dead body, not to be thrown. But they didn't manage. They went there. Finally, we received a call. They are now moving the dead body, going, and the police car was not arrived yet. When they arrived, when they went there, nobody. They all disappeared. They take their cows. They moved in another place. Even the neighbors, 8 households were not there too. So really we need the vehicle and the other support. As we see, we receive girls, they need basic needs, clothes, food, medication. Some, if we take them to school, after reconciliation failed to their parents, they need school uniforms, educational materials, like that. Thank you.
I was going to ask you guys a question, but I got to add this. It makes me so sad to be in the 2018, today, that we see girls and women suffering for their rights. I want you all to open your mind. I want you all to think about this, that what just been said, that I got the rights to stand here today. I'm a survivor of FGM, and I went through the Civil War. But I'm here because I claimed and I spoke up. And I'm here. And what makes me so sad is that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of girls, not just FGM, that who are going through this. And what it tells you tonight is that we can make a difference. We can actually stand up and say no is no. We're not doing this anymore. We're not going to look at girls suffer for their sexuality, because that's what FGM happens. FGM is to control women's sexuality. Me and my sister here are survivors. If none of you have ever met survivors, tonight you met one, too. Our voice can take us so far. Our voice can change the world. I have 2 of my nieces today. This week, one is going to be 11 and one is going to be 7. Guess why I bring them? Because I was thinking that it's old enough for them to bring them. I have to literally bring them here. Because if I don't bring them here, how are they going to learn to change the world? How are they going to learn to stand up and do what they have to do? So yeah, this is not professional because, I'm crying and all, but this is closer to my heart. So I want you to all think about, and now I'm going to open the floor, so ask any question that you want. Thank you.
Anybody have a question? What we are talking about, and I'm sure all of you are informed, and that's why you're here, but there are 200 million survivors of FGM in the world today. 200 million. 44 million of them are under the age of 14. And each and every year, this year, 3.9 million girls will be cut. So this is not a small thing. It's not an over there thing, because we have people in the UK that are being cut, in Canada, in the US.
Go ahead, Sam.
Do you think the new government puts more emphasis on the fight against FGM? I mean, the government after Kikwete.
For a good question, yes, it is true that our government is fighting against FGM. That is why in our work, we can collaborate with the police gender desk, you see, the community social welfare offices. We are working together in this fight against FGM. So our government really is working upon a fight against FGM. And now, the way in the past, I think no any cutter who were arrested and taken to prison. But now you can see 4 cutters, and they were famous fat cutters. They taken to prison for more than 10 years. This is a good lesson to other cutters in the community.
And I can add to that, we took our film to Tanzania last December and again in July. In July we had a very big premiere in Tanzania, and government officials came. Local government officials flew into Zanzibar to support Rhobi. The police superintendent, social services, religious leaders, and so on. About 10 or 12 of them were there to support Rhobi on the film, which was amazing. And in Dar es Salaam, when we showed the film, the woman, the representative for the health ministry for Tanzania actually literally got on her knees and asked assembled NGOs to support mobile screenings with the film to change people's hearts and minds. And some of that is already happening with the support of the Canadian government, but more funding is needed for that as well, because Rhobi wants to take the film to every village that's affected in Tanzania and thus help change minds and hearts. How is that going, by the way?
Yeah.
What's the reaction to the film and all that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Through support from Canadian Embassy, they have committed to support us with the mobile screening in Butiama district. So the work have been started, raising awareness about the effects of FGM using this film. And it is touching. We are expecting that our community will change soon. And this film is providing an opportunity for the girls, for the parents and the community to listen to their daughters. It raises voice for their daughters. The girls are raising their voices to be heard with their parents. Because the parents, they don't want to listen to their daughters. It's them they plan for their daughters and then cut their dreams not to continue with education. So the girls, they don't want to be cut. They want to continue with education.
We have one more question. Sorry to cut you.
Can I just quickly
Yes,
say,
quickly.
to Hillary's point about safe houses, the first village screening we had, I was there in July, and the next morning, three girls showed up at the safe house after they saw the film, 9 and 10 years old. To your point about we need more safe houses, because as soon as girls find out what's really going to happen to them, not the romanticized version of what the parents tell them, they don't want to be cut. and they run away. So we need to do our thing we did yesterday.
Definitely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have one more question, but what I'm gonna do, there's more than one question. Then people can just literally say the question that they want, and then we can answer it in one, because we really need to be quick. Secondly, I actually want you all to come on Tuesday, and correct me if I'm right, where is the play? Come on.
University of Westminster, so please tell your friends. So there's been so much demand for that they've now found another venue that seats 300, so we want to try and fill that on Tuesday at 6 p.m. University of Westminster.
University of Westminster, please do come and bring
Send your
all
friends.
everybody. Send your friends. I'm definitely gonna be there and bring all of my, because I'm a nurse by grant. But anyway, anybody got a question? Right. So put your hands up, and what I'm gonna do is that
6.
we're gonna keep up this. So we're gonna go around and then answer it all at once. Is that okay?
And,
Yes. So I'm coming to you first. Sorry to say.
Very much, everybody. The film was fantastic, Maradadi. It shows the power of film. And what I really enjoyed in the film was how you also used on your phone, showing the film between, and this is taking between the family and getting that power of emotion. And I really do hope that it gets seen more. So my quick question is how do we get copies of it, and how can we support its distribution?
Okay. Hold that thought. Who next person? The other hand. Right.
I would like to know whether you have a special program for formal circumcises, the ladies who earned money by cutting, circumcising girls. Do you provide them with a different kind of job, or what do you do with them? Because they lose all their what?
The income.
Their income,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
by
the word.
by
Similar to gentleman before. I think what I was interested in was when these young men were talking about how their money or their finances would be reduced. In your opinion, how do you feel like the progress of their mindset on not just FGM, but the way they look at these girls as, even in your own words, you say that when they look at girls, they look at them as, you look at cows, they see cows. So do you, in your opinion, how do you feel like in these communities that their mindset is changing, not just in FGM, but on selling them into child marriage, and selling them into just as commodity? In your opinion, do you feel like the mindset is changing, or is it still a very big issue that may take a while?
Do we want to answer that quickly? Because how many more people? I got one more. Two. Okay. Should we answer some?
good plan. Okay, go ahead, Rhobi.
Yes. I think that in our working on creating awareness and giving education to the community about the effects of FGM, we have succeeded to change some of the cutters to stop working to cut their girls, but also turn some of traditional leaders to stop working on that. But really, they need to be supported for them to start their small projects so that they could not think more on how to go back again to that work. So what we are doing, like in Serengeti, we have started, we provide with them entrepreneurship training, skills on how they could start their other projects so they could generate income. And we link them with some of the credit, microfinance, for them to have some loans from there, and then they could start their businesses at their families, on their community. And we have succeeded for some of the cutters and some of traditional leaders who are still with energy to work. You know, some of traditional leaders are old, too old, and they could not move from here, and they are just small movements. So they use some of their grandchildren to work upon them. So they generate and then they support them through that. That is what we are doing. and we try to do it in Serengeti district. In Butiama, not yet. We are still looking on how we could be funded in order to continue with this program properly. The issue of men and boys who are thinking like that, what we do in general in the community, we try to have these men's clubs. Men clubs, we tell them the effects of FGM, and they formulate those clubs in order to educate other men about the effects of FGM, but also to think more on how they could start other income generating projects instead of depending for their sisters, that they will be married and then they will get some money, or during the seasonal cutting, I'm a tailor, I will be sewing a lot of clothes and they will be paid. So they have to think more, because this is illegal and it has effects to women. So we are trying to change their mind and attitude on that way, telling them, even if you marry a woman who has been cut, during delivery time, you are going to spend a lot of money wasting. So they tried thinking and they make it, just see, yes, this is really, it is true. Some of the men from our club, they're giving their testimonies, telling them what happened for those who have married women who have been cut, and that they will not do so, and they are going to stop even their son not to marry women who have been cut. But also we promoting this is safe circumcision. You know, we still have traditional circumcision, where boys are going to be circumcised with these local circumcisers. So we promote safe circumcision, that boys should go to the health centers, to hospitals, so they could be circumcised there. And from that, we...
Sorry, I got to cut you now.
Thank you. We ask them not to marry women whom have been cut. Also, they have to think more on how they could generate income, not depending to their sisters, so they could leave them, continue with their dreams, to be educated more. That is what we are trying to do. But also in our government, through the district council, there is 5% of their revenues which should be needed to be go to support women and the youth in the community. So through this microfinance program. So we also tell them about this. They have to join so that they could benefit. Thank you.
I am